Hello, I'm Carl Zielinski, and today I want to show you how to set up Sublime Text so that it is a nice development environment for the Odin Programming Language. Throughout this video, I assume that you already have a working Odin compiler set up. If you do not have that, then I have a separate video on how to set up the Odin compiler. The link to that is in the description. Sublime Text then is a fast and extensible editor that I think strikes a quite nice balance between powerfulness and simplicity, and I have used Sublime Text in combination with Odin to create whole video games. However, some of the features that make Sublime Text nicer to use can be a bit tedious to set up, which is why I have created this video. So first things first, getting Sublime Text. What you do is you pop open a web browser, and inside the web browser you go to sublimetext.com, press enter, and on here you click this download for Windows button to download and install Sublime Text. When you've installed it and started it, you will see something like this. This program we're looking at here is actually Sublime Text. What we'll do now is we'll create a Sublime project. We create this project as sort of a template that will contain all the nice settings we need to make it a nice development environment for Odin, and then we can just copy that Sublime project file whenever we want to start working on new things. So let's pop open a file explorer, and in the file explorer navigate to this PC and go to your C drive, and I have a folder called code here, so I will go into there. So now I will create a new folder to put my Odin plus Sublime template inside. So I will go to right click menu, new folder, and I will name it Sublime_Odin. And when I have that done, then I can just drag and drop the Sublime_Odin folder into Sublime Text. And this folder thingy on the side will pop out here. If it didn't pop out, chances are that it's disabled, and you can enable it by going into View, Sidebar, and clicking Show Sidebar here. So now we can save this as a Sublime project by going into the project folder, choosing Save Project As, and then you go to the C drive, go into Code, and go into Sublime Odin, and then I will name the project file Sublime_Odin, and then click Save. And then you see the Sublime_Odin file appear in here. So now I just also want to create a tiny Odin program, and the reason I want to do that is so that we have some Odin code to look at and experiment with throughout the rest of these steps. So I will right click on the Sublime Odin folder here and choose new file, and then it pops open a new file here. So in here I will just type out the simplest Odin program I can think of. So I will type package Odin Sublime template, and then we'll write a main procedure, which is where our program starts. So we write main : proc, some parentheses, and then some curly braces. And this is essentially the smallest Odin program you can make. Let's just add one more thing so that it prints something. We can import core fmt like this. And then inside the main proc here, you can write fmt.println hello world. So that's a really simple program that just, when it runs, it just says hello world and then it quits. So let's save that. So we can save this file as hello world.odin. And this, like I said, this file is not important. The important part is the Sublime project file that we can copy around to create new projects later. But this file we will use to just test the things we install into Sublime. So now that we have that done, we can install package control. Package control is Sublime Text's own package manager, and using it you can install some additional features, some of which we will install throughout the rest of this video. So what we'll do is we press Ctrl-Shift-P, and this brings up the command palette, I think it's called. On Mac you might have to press Command-Shift-P instead of Control, and then you can just write install package control, and it should highlight this install package control thingy here. If you don't get this alternative, you probably already have package control installed, in which case you can just move to step 4. So we press enter, and then it says package control was successfully installed, and then you can click OK. So now we can go to step 4, Odin syntax highlight. So many programmers like having more color in their code so they can easily tell things apart, and that's called syntax highlighting. So we will install Odin syntax highlighting, and we do that by opening the command palette again, Ctrl-Shift-P, and then we can write install package So then you will choose the package control install package alternative, and this uses the package control package manager that we just installed. And then in this thing that pops up, you type Odin, and then it highlights Odin syntax definition for Sublime Text, and you press enter on that. And in order to actually use this syntax highlighting, you might have to go down to the corner here where it says plain text. You click that, and then you choose Odin. And there you go, it all became a bit more colorful now. When you open new Odin files, it will already use the Odin one, but this file was already open, so that's why we had to do it manually there. Now we can go to step 5, build system. It is nice if you can compile and run your code from within the editor, so you don't have to switch to a command prompt all the time to do that. And you can do that from within Sublime using a build system. There are 2 types of build systems. One is a global one that you can use from any project, and then you can also have project-specific ones. I have come to the conclusion that it's almost always better to use project-specific ones, because as your project grows, you will have little special quirks to how you build it anyways, so you might as well just put it inside the project. So the way we add this build system to our project is by modifying the Sublime project file manually. So you click the Sublime project file in here, and then you see it opened here. And currently it just contains a list of all the folders that make up this project. And currently it says that it has 1 folder and it has the path period. The reason it has the path period is because it refers to the same folder as the Sublime_Odin Sublime project file sits in. And that folder is the Sublime Odin folder. So it just refers to the folder it is in itself, which is nice because that means you can copy this project file to another folder, and then it will just use that folder as its sort of main project folder. But we are interested in putting in a new build system. So the way we do that is by just after this angled bracket here, we place a comma, and then we write in quotation marks build systems, and then we put a colon, a new line, and then we put one of those angled brackets. So, and this is a list of build systems because you can have multiple build systems defined within a project file. And then we put curly braces. So between these two, we define one build system. And what we'll do here is we'll give it a name. So we write name like this, colon, and then we give this build system a name. So I will just write Sublime Odin template. And then we type a comma at the end. And then we need to say, what should this build system do when it is run? Well, we want it to compile and run our Odin code. So we'll write CMD, short for command, colon, and then we write here Odin run period. Now, this requires that you have the Odin compiler in your path. If you watched my other video on how to set up the Odin compiler, we probably did all that so that the Odin compiler is accessible from wherever you are on the computer. So now if you save that file and you jump back to hello-world.odin, you can now go into Tools and go to Build System, and then you have 2 categories of build systems here. The ones in this category here are the ones defined by the project itself. This will vary depending on which project you are inside, and the ones down here are global ones. So we select Odin Sublime template, and now in order to use the build system, you just press F7 on the keyboard. And there you see in the console that appeared down here, it says hello world. That means that it compiled and ran our project. You can press escape to close that console. So now that we can compile from within Sublime Text, it would be nice if it can display compile errors for us in a nice way. Because if you write something like this, say that you try to run a procedure that doesn't exist. You write hello and then some parentheses and you try to run this, then it says undeclared name hello. Now if you have a big project and you get a compilation error in some other file at some weird line, then it would be nice to be able to quickly jump to there. And what this error says here is that this is the file and this is the line number and this is the column and this is the error message. So there is a way to tell Sublime how to interpret that info so that you can quickly jump to errors. And the way you do that is by going back into the Sublime project file, and then as part of our build system we will introduce something called a file regex. So just at the end of the CMD line you add a new comma and then you write file underscore regex. And then you write colon, and then you write some quotation marks. And I will supply you with the file regex. I will just copy paste it in here, but I will also put it in the description of the video, and I will explain quickly what it does. So it looks like this. And this is a regular expression, and each of these parentheses here is trying to match something in the output of the build process here. So the first parenthesis matches this part, the file name. The second one here matches a number, and then there's a colon in between, and then it matches another number, which is the column, and then the rest of it matches as the error message. So if we save that, go back and press F7 again, you now see it says undeclared name hello on this line here. And if you were to have multiple errors, so we say bye down here, press F7, and now you can press F4 to jump to the next error. So you F4 for the first error, and then F4 again to jump to the second one. So now we have all that working. We can delete this broken code here. So now we can go to step 7 here, code completion, Odin Language Server. Code completion means that you get suggestions on what procedures and variable names that exist in your code. Sublime Text has some built-in sort of not very smart code completion, where it can give you recommendations on variables that exist within the same file, but it doesn't do anything smart where it actually analyzes the code and can give you recommendation based on things in entirely other files and depending on context. To get something like that, you can use what's known as the Odin Language Server. The Odin Language Server is a separate little program that runs in the background that analyzes your code and gives you these recommendations. And Odin Language Server, or OLS as it is shortened, is written in Odin, and we need to download and compile OLS and then make use of it from within Sublime Text. So let's first download OLS and then set it up within Sublime Text. So what we'll do is we'll pop open a web browser, and then you can search on the internet for Odin Language Server. And the first alternative you get is probably this one, GitHub Daniel Gavin /OLS. That's the one you want. And on this GitHub page, there is at the bottom some install instructions and stuff, but I will just show you how to do it. So you can download the code either by downloading the zip or by using Git to clone it. And I will use Git since I used that in my previous videos to set up the Odin compiler itself. So I will copy this URL to the clipboard, and then I would pop open the start menu and write cmd to open the command prompt. And I will go to the root directory of C:, and here I write git space clone space, and then I right click to paste the URL. And then it clones OLS into a new directory. So I can go into the OLS directory, cd OLS, and in this directory, if I type dir, it shows me the contents, and in this folder there is a build.bat file that I can run in order to compile OLS. There is also a build.sh if you're on Mac or Linux and want to do the same. So I build it by just writing build. And then I wait a bit, and this uses the Odin compiler to actually build OLS. If you have any trouble at this point building OLS, then make sure that you have the latest Odin compiler and that you have the latest OLS code as well, because they need to sort of match up quite nicely. Okay, so this is done now. You can type dir again and see that there is an ols.exe here, which is the Odin Language Server, which is the program that will run in the background to give us smart code completion from within Sublime. We can close this command prompt now. In order to use OLS from within Sublime Text, we need to install an LSP client. This means a language server protocol client, and that's the add-on within Sublime Text that makes it possible for it to talk to OLS so that it can give us suggestions for our code. So what we'll do is we'll install that using package control. So we hold Ctrl-Shift and press P, and then we write install package, and we press enter. And inside this one, we write LSP. And the first suggestion here, client implementation for language server protocol is the one we want. So we press enter to install that. Once this is installed, you get a README file about the LSP package here that you can close if you don't want to read it now. So now we need to configure LSP so that it knows where our ols.exe file that we just built is. So in order to configure LSP, you go into Preferences menu up here, go to Package Settings, LSP, and then Settings. And then it pops open a new window like this, where it shows the default settings over here, and here are your settings for your LSP server. And this is where we're gonna put in some stuff. And the stuff we're gonna put in, we will find on the OLS GitHub page. So if you go to the OLS GitHub page where you got the Git URL before, then you can scroll down, and almost all the way at the bottom, there is a Sublime configuration of the LSP. So you can just copy this whole thing with this button here. And then you can go back to here and you can just replace everything in here like this, paste that in there. So the only thing you need to change in the stuff you just pasted here is that you need to point to where OLS executable is. Mine is located in C:\\, and you need to do 2 backslashes for each backslash here. OLS / OLS.exe, you need to do 2 backslashes because a single backslash has a specific meaning within these files. And then you can also remove this thing down here, the collection stuff, all the way from this bracket to this one, just delete that. And that's all you need to change to get it working. So you can save that and then close this window, because this is a separate Sublime window with the settings. And when you close it, you should get back to where you were in your Sublime Odin template project. So now you just need to tell it to use this Odin Language Server for your Sublime project. And the way you do that is by opening the command palette again, Ctrl+Shift+P, and you write LSP enable. And then you choose Enable Language Server in project, not globally. You press enter, and then you get a list like this. If you do not get this list, perhaps you need to restart Sublime Text since installing the LSP plugin. But you should be able to go down to Odin and then press enter. And now LSP with the Odin Language Server should be active, and we can test it by, for example, making a new line here and writing fmt dot, and we can write stuff like print, and it will give you suggestions on everything that start with print inside the fmt package here. And we could, for example, also include a new package like import rl vendor::raylib if you want to use raylib, and then you could write rl dot init window, and it will give you suggestions on what the parameters are of this procedure and all that. A thing to keep in mind here is that if you go to your Sublime project, if things are not working for you, you must have the folder of your project within your project, meaning that this stuff must be present so that the file you're trying to write your code inside and get completion inside, that one is actually part of the project. I have noticed that if you do not have that, then it actually doesn't work. We're almost done here for today, but just a few small things here. Step 8 says autocomplete on/off. I can find it almost a bit too intense when it is constantly giving me automatic suggestions. So for example, if we were using raylib, so we use core vendor raylib like this, and I wrote rl.load texture, for example, and whenever I type something here, it will just give me lots of suggestions that are perhaps not that relevant yet. So for me, it is better to go to the project file, and at the top here, just before the LSP, you can type auto_complete :false, and then comma, and then you go back. So now if I type something like rl, it no longer gives me suggestions, but I can type, for example, rl.load, and then I can press Control-space, and then it gives me some suggestions on available procedures within the RL package. Another thing that I think is nice is if you add the core and vendor libs you need into the project. What this means is that if, for example, I want to look inside the raylib bindings to see what procedures are available, then it would be nice if I could just type the file name. So for example, if I press Ctrl P, which means open file, I can't type raylib here. So if I go to where the Odin stuff is on the hard drive, then I can just pull in the core folder, which will give me the whole standard library of Odin. And then I can also go into vendor, and whichever vendor libs I use, I can also just pull into my project like this. And now I can press Ctrl P and type raylib. And also if I have something where I write, for example, rl.load texture, then with just LSP, you can't press F12 to get to load texture. But if you have raylib, for example, in here, then I can now press F12 and it will jump to the definition of that thing. So I think it's a nice combination to have both the OLS stuff plus having the libraries you use inside your project like this. So you can quickly jump to the definition of things and look at them. And you can do the same, for example, with fmt.println, and you can just press F12 to go see what it does. Okay, so that's that. That's all you need to do to make this Sublime Text Odin development nice. Now, if you need to start a new project, then what I said at the beginning is that you can just copy the project file. So what I mean by this is if, for example, here you have the Sublime Odin directory that we've been working inside. If you go in there, and here is your project file, you can just copy this, Ctrl C, go up a folder, make a new folder, choose new folder, and then we say fantastic project, we name it. We go in there and we paste it, and then we just double click this one, and here we have a brand new project with everything preset up. We can just make a new Odin file, save it as main.odin, package, game, main is a proc, and we can import core fmt and write fmt.println. You see the OLS stuff is already working. Hello world, press F7, and it compiled and ran in a new project just like that. Okay, that's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you around. Bye bye.